Good evening, family. Good evening. First and foremost, I want to thank the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey for honoring me and having us here. And I want to thank Uncle John. Everybody say Uncle John. Uncle John. Thank you, Uncle John, for the opportunity to present tonight and for honoring me for an 18-year business career that started on a very unusual journey. But before I talk about that journey, I wanted to talk about Black history during Black History Month. And there's a little known story and figure in Black history about a gentleman by King by the name of W Gurley. By show of hands, who here is familiar with W Gurley? About 3 of us in the room. W Gurley was a Mississippi entrepreneur who in 1905, just 35 years after the enslavement of African people in America, W Gurley moved from Mississippi to a small town in Oklahoma called Tulsa town, which is today known as Tulsa, Oklahoma. In 1905, W Gurley purchased 40 acres of land, similar to that 40 acres and a mule we were expecting. He went and purchased the 40 acres his damn self. Because of segregation, W Gurley was not allowed to sell that land to anyone of European descent or white people in America. He was forced to sell to other black people. So he partnered with Simon Berry and J.B. Stafford, and he began to develop that land. And from 1905 to 1921, W Gurley and his cohorts built up 36 square blocks of over 2,000 homes and businesses, which we call, in this modern era, Black Wall Street. On June 1st of 1921, this 36 square block radius in Tulsa town, Tulsa, Oklahoma, was bombed, burned, and massacred. Over 2,000 homes and businesses destroyed. Hundreds murdered, thousands incarcerated in internment camps, and it was a race massacre that they coded under the term race riot, all so they could deny insurance claims. Today's equivalent of tens of millions, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth was lost of that Tulsa real estate community and Black Wall Street community known as Greenwood. But W Gurley is a little talked about figure in American history and Black history. In Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, that was the first terrorist attack that ever happened on American soil when the Sheriff's Department of Tulsa, Oklahoma bombed Black Wall Street from the sky. Black history. In less than 5 years, the community of Tulsa, Oklahoma galvanized and they rebuilt Black Wall Street. Fast forward almost 100 years, and another Black history moment occurred. On June 1st, coincidentally, the same day that Black Wall Street was bombed and massacred, but on June 1st of 2018, a Somerville, New Jersey native who came through Plainfield, New Jersey on East 6th Street, who dropped out of high school at 17 years old, who caught his first felony at 18 years old in New York, facing 3 years to life in prison on Rikers Island, who would catch 3 more felonies for drug trafficking by 22 years old, served 2.5 years in prison, and hustled on the street corners of South 10th and Springfield in Newark, New Jersey, would leave in 2005 those street corners to begin a career in mortgages and in real estate as an investor, as a developer with Flexible Benefits Mortgage Company, with Keller Williams in Plainfield, New Jersey, Centurion Realty, and would climb to be a multi-millionaire real estate investor would blow money fast, as Drake or Rick Ross would tell us, would fall bankrupt and broke when the market crashed in 2008 and 9, would be depressed and divorced and lost all his self-confidence, but would climb back at 31 years old to begin in real estate, working for and working as the first African man in America hired by Prominent Properties Sotheby's International Realty in Alpine, New Jersey. This young man would be recruited by NBC as a celebrity realtor on their show Open House NYC that would air to 2 million viewers on Sunday mornings. He would then get picked up by the Today Show to do live TV as a real estate expert, would then author 2 books, and begin to found an online wealth education school called the Jay-Morrison-Academy in 2014. In less than 6 years, the Jay-Morrison-Academy would educate over 100,000 students, make the Inc. 500 twice, at number 588 fastest growing companies in the country, number 10 top educational companies in the country. But after hosting 65 free corner classes, real estate corner classes taught on inner city street corners to educate our community where people are at, and after 15 acts of social activism, ranging from Baltimore on Ground Zero when Freddie Gray was assassinated, ranging from out in Sterling being murdered in Baton Rouge, Alfred Wright being lynched in Hempfield, Texas, this young entrepreneur was on the ground, front line, in front of cops with riot gear. Through all these social protests and all these grassroots movements and education, this entrepreneur would galvanize the community he created in about 10 years. And on June 1st of 2018, he would launch the historic Tulsa Real Estate Fund, the first African-American owned real estate crowd fund in the history of America. In an 18-month period, the Tulsa Real Estate Fund would IPO and launch and galvanize 9,600 plus investment partners and raise over $8.4 million from everyday working class, non-accredited investors at a minimum investment of $500 for 10 shares in the Tulsa Real Estate Fund at $50 per share. And with that $8.4 million, the Tulsa Real Estate Fund would create a stabilized value of $12.2 million and own apartment complexes such as the 98 units in Macon, Georgia, would fund 6 minority investors all over the country, would fund 2 black women development companies, owned development companies in Louisiana for 14-unit apartment complexes and 7-unit post-Katrina development. And the Tulsa Real Estate Fund, under the leadership of this other entrepreneur, would also, on January 8th, launch what's called the Black House, or the Legacy Center in Atlanta, Georgia, just 5 minutes from the world's busiest airport, Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, and will launch this Legacy Center, a 30,000 square foot Class A commercial building on a 2.6 acre campus sitting in an opportunity zone in Atlanta, Georgia, that will birth several businesses, a Legacy Center co-working space, an incubator space for entrepreneurs, Legacy Center University, a wealth education school teaching real estate, business, and credit, which will launch Legacy Center Financial Group, offering life insurance, tax services, credit services, and business funding, and creating a financial empowerment ecosystem not just by one man, but owned by the 9,600 people invested into the fund. I'm sure we're all bright enough to know that young man we're talking about is me. Family, less than 3 years ago, I relocated to Atlanta, Georgia from Edison, New Jersey. I spent the majority of my life here in New Jersey. And I have a very unconventional story. I was a high school dropout of Bridgewater Raritan High School. I went back to Somerset County Vocational High School to a TOPS alternative program with the bad kids to graduate on time. I did serve 2.5 years in prison. I was incarcerated on the infamous Rikers Island, C-74, Mod 3 Upper. I was facing 3 years to life in prison at 18 years old for my first nonviolent drug crime. And I did bounce back from that adversity. I did bounce back from growing up on welfare and WIC and Section 8 and food stamps. Yes, the paper food stamps back in the day. I did survive all that. God had the grace and mercy on my life, the anointing on my life to allow me to survive all of that. To be able to be a testimony to our community and our resilience. We are the descendants of the Africans that refused to die. And also to be a testimony for the young brothers and sisters who are caught up in the corner trap, who believe that rap or ball or selling drugs are the only way out. I'm a living testament as a 39-year-old entrepreneur who runs a group of companies north of $20 million, as a non-college educated, off the muscle, out the mud, street entrepreneur elevated into this businessman. And what I do know through my testimony and my journey, what it proves is that with education, my education was not a formal one, but I did learn mortgages while on parole. I learned about real estate, credit, and business and entrepreneurship. And I believe for those who are caught up in the mass incarceration system, if you can't come home to a job, you can come home and create your own job. And what I further want to, as I conclude, hope that my story and my journey and my testimony shows proof to, is the ability for us, as Martin Luther King said, Dr. Martin Luther King said, it's one thing to tell a man to pull himself up by the bootstraps, but it's a cruel joke to tell a man to pull himself up by the bootstraps and you didn't give him any boots. Well, what we have proven to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream with the Tulsa Real Estate Fund is that with an average investment of just a little over $700, what many of us would spend out on a vacation or a couple nights out on the town or some video games or ancillary income, for an average investment of $700, we were able to pull close to $9 million together from non-accredited and accredited investors, where they can have ownership and equity in Class A commercial assets, opportunity zone assets, and multifamily apartment buildings for minimum investments. What many can do when they come together. If just 40,000 of us were to invest $1,000 together, that would be 40 million overnight. 40,000 people represents about 0.009% of the American population, close to 0.02% of the African population in America. It does not take much for us to solve our own problems. It is, as Africans in America, that's what I call us, we're proud to be African Americans, but we must realize that we are the Africans that were left in America. And as those citizens, we can solve our own problems by coming together and by pooling our resources. And it's up to us to not stop blaming them and they for what has happened to us or our oppression or trauma, but it's up for us to do for ourselves what we can do for ourselves, and that is the spirit of the African American Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey. And I thank you all for having me tonight.